Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Rough Riders, where every week, or sort of every week, it's very inconsistent, but the goal is every week. We'll talk writing, self-publishing, and making it as an author. This week, I am joined by Alfred Muller. So he's author of two indie novels so far, both part of the Water Crystal series. The first one being Deal with the Devil, second one being Rise of Azrasul Kaimana. Did I say it right?
Yeah,
Or
you
I hope
did.
I got it right.
Good.
Okay, cool. So I'm really happy to have Alfred here. He is one of the first people who reached out to me actually, and I kept pushing back our interview because of random things that were going on. But he's finally here with me. So thank you, Alfred, for being here.
No problem. Thanks for doing this. I love talking about books and writing and especially indie publishing.
Yeah. Well, I saw that you actually have your own podcast, kind of like a
Yes.
nerd related one, which is awesome to me. So, because you do it's the War of the Nerds, right? That's awesome. So, I feel like you already kind of have an experience talking about this, so this will be something familiar to you. So,
Yeah.
let's start with kind of where I've started it with everyone, I guess. But let's start with talking about you. Let everyone know who you are and just your background.
Okay. So I was a late bloomer when it came to reading. So writing was never on my mind. It wasn't until my senior year in high school I picked up Percy Jackson, binged through that entire series, and realized, huh, enjoy reading. So why don't I try writing? And I'd been creative. I always loved to like play pretend and stuff as a kid. And then after I started to find my love, I was like, you know what? I could create some of these worlds that I have swirling around in my head and put pen to pad. And the Water Crystal Deal with the Devil started out in a spiral notebook uh, when I was 18, just sitting there on my couch writing. It didn't fill up the entire spiral notebook, but that's where it started. And then from there, it was edit after edit after edit. And then it finally came to, and then I've found like there's a dozen other worlds I want to explore. My creativity hasn't stopped, it just keeps growing. And then I came out with book two. Uh,
That's awesome.
thank you.
Those are
And
pretty
I've got,
covers, by the way.
thank
That
you.
is the
I,
subject that I'm always interested in is where you got that from, because everyone, covers are a thing that for I would say a lot of indie authors starting out, or I could at least speak for myself when I was starting out. That was something that always seemed like a little daunting, is where you actually get one that looks decent. So I'm just going to directly ask you, how did you go about getting a cover? Because that's just such a different story for everyone.
So mine's kind of like a long route, and I'm not going to throw any names out there, but I had a cover designer and we didn't mesh. I had checked out her website to begin with, and I thought I found a great cover designer, paid her. I did not end up with anything good, and I was like a week out from when I was going to publish my book. So I
Oh no.
quick
Okay.
jumped on my computer, Photoshop, did some really quick uh, imagery, and I published my book with that cover to begin with. It is not these two. So I went to my first convention, and a buddy of mine and a mentor now, Richard Fierce, big indie author in my area, took me under his wing and was like, "I'm gonna be honest with you, your covers are meh." So he introduced me to Lucia T. She's a German artist on Fiverr, and I've been working with her, and she's actually got my third book cover created. Amazing artist. I love working with her. She's super friendly, always willing to respond. The time difference never seems to be an impediment. She's always, if not the night of the morning, I get an email from her responding to any issues we had, anything like that. And like I said, I mean, issues is like, can we adjust this? Can we change this?
Mhm.
Make it like this? And she's always willing to adjust and fix. So she's awesome. And like I said, Lucia T on Fiverr if you're looking for a fantasy style artist.
That's great that you have the same artist for all the books that you're doing in that series, so that way it actually looks like cohesive,
Yeah,
and they seem to be a very, very good artist. So
yeah,
that's
I'm
that's
very
really
happy with
nice.
it.
I know what that's like to be putting a book out with almost just like a placeholder cover, and then have people come to you and be like, your book's pretty good, but you might need to do something about that. Because with my sci-fi novel, that was sort of the situation when I had put it out. I mean, at the time, I was so clueless about kind of anything that when it came to like self-publishing, indie publishing, anything like that, I was sort of winging it. Like I feel like I didn't really have a lot of guidance. I'm sure there were probably resources out there, but I don't know. I just didn't really.
That's
I didn't know where to start. So I
exactly
had
that's something I
yeah.
think a lot of indie authors have when they're first starting out. They don't know where to go. Like
Mhm,
KDP says, "Oh, here's this gateway for you to publish a book," but the step-by-step process is not there where it's like, all right, you need to compete with your book covers, you need to
mhm.
have it formatted, you need to do all these steps, and as a newbie you're like, I have no idea where to even begin.
Mhm. Yeah, and with, like especially with KDP, because that's who I was using at first. Because I feel like a lot of people probably start with that because it's just so prominent, but when I was using that, they have their cover creator app thing when you go to publish a book through them, and with the way that that is, where it is fairly simplistic and I honestly not great layouts, like, they don't really point you in a great direction when it comes to getting a decent cover. And they'll say something like, oh, book cover is important, but then when that is the resource that you're giving people to generate a cover, like, you're really not going to get one that's particularly competitive. So yeah, I had one that was basically just like largely unedited stock photo that was just from like Shutterstock or something like that. And I thought, you know what, I guess it's good enough. Like, I wasn't disgusted by it, but it wasn't exactly what I would have wanted, but I needed something because it was better than having no cover. So so yeah, it was only later that I kind of got it improved, but at the very beginning I had no idea. So I know what that is like with the situation that you had. Yours unfortunately was it sounds like the artist kind of burned you.
Yeah, a little bit.
But you got a great cover, and you have a great cover for all three of the books, even though the third book is not out yet, right? I think that one is going to be called Evil in Men, and I think it was going to be released next year sometime, like in the spring.
Yes. uh
Okay.
February, I'm going to launch a Kickstarter in February.
Mhm.
There's going to be different editions with like bells and whistles, printed edges, all that fun
Nice.
stuff.
Cool. I've never really looked too much into any sort of crowdfunding when it comes to, like putting out a book as a project. So, what does that look like? Could you tell me a little bit about how, if someone's an author and they're trying to do something like that, like raise a little bit of money because, self-publishing can be expensive. Not everyone has a lot of money to burn with that. So, how does that look if you're trying to pull that off?
So this will be my first one. However, the man I mentioned earlier, Richard Fierce, he does this religiously. Like he
Mhm.
puts Kickstarters out every other month kind of thing. And he's told me a lot about it. So basically, with my limited knowledge, having not run one completely before, uh, you set up your Kickstarter as far as like different tiers. You're supposed to have like a simple tier where people who just want to back you, help you out, and pay like $1 or $5 towards, and then you have different tiers from there with different rewards. So digital copies are the lower tiers, and then you start getting into the printed copies, hardbacks, then the special editions with like printed edges and ribbons for bookmarks, dust jackets, special things like that. Because if you look at Kickstarter, a lot of indie authors are stepping up their game. They're getting foil on the covers under the dust jackets. They're getting these printed edges, painted edges, inside formatting, all that fun stuff. So to be competitive, you kind of got to do that. But the interesting part that I learned is you're going to find a different audience. So I go to conventions a lot. There's audiences there. You've got audiences online that'll do Kindle only or some type of digital format. And you've got people who buy books from Amazon, people who only buy in the store. And you have people who only buy books on Kickstarter and they want to back new authors on Kickstarter, which is pretty cool because you can expand your audience that way. Essentially, what you want to do is set your fund for as low as you possibly can, especially when you're first starting out. Because with Kickstarter, if it doesn't fund, you just don't have a fund. You don't have a campaign. No one's money is taken. They all get refunded, and your project
Oh,
fails.
if you don't meet that threshold that you set, then you get nothing. It's like a all or
Correct.
nothing kind of thing. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So with mine at the moment in the very simple phase, I'm going to aim for 2000. I think that would be
Mhm.
the slowest I can go. It might be rough, but it's for a trilogy as opposed to a single book. It might be doable. I'm going to talk with Richard, see if I can pull that off. But that's kind of where my aim is going for.
Mhm.
Uh, and that's just to pay for the covers, pay for the printed edges, the copies I have to get, that type of stuff.
Okay. Yeah, the covers are getting really fancy among indie authors now. And I know you like in order to actually compete with books that are printed by a large corporate publisher, then you would need to do something like that to visually catch people's attention. But yeah, like I've having been talking to this many indie authors now, way more than I ever honestly ever imagined that I would be. So many people, yeah, like the foil is something that I never even would have thought about as an option because it just seems so ornate to me that I wouldn't even think it's something that someone like us would have access to for our own books. So it's really cool to see what people are able to produce in terms of a cover and something that is going to catch a reader's eye and look, this is professional.
Yeah.
Like, don't let that, stereotype of an indie book like get to you where you start thinking that, oh, it's going to be low quality or something. Like, no, they can be gorgeous, like absolutely
Yes.
beautiful books. So anyone who is starting out, this is attainable. It just might be a little bit expensive. But
Yeah.
like for me, I mean, I'm not going to ask you how much you spent on your covers, but I would think that the cover art is the thing that tends to be a little bit more expensive. That and depending on someone's situation with getting an editor, I think is something that could be kind of expensive. Like I've said this a whole bunch of times, but I had two friends that worked in like publishing and like editing and stuff, so I kind of just pulled some strings like for getting someone to edit mine. So I didn't end up having to pay anything, which is a beautiful situation. I kind of lost touch with those friends, so now I don't have
Oh,
that luxury anymore. So any future book I do, I am gonna have to find someone to edit it and pay them for it. But that and the cover art are the two things that off the top of my head I would think are like the biggest sort of financial hurdle for someone if they're really trying to go legit with it. So I would think like your Kickstarter, is going to cover those sorts of services. So
yes. The downside is you do have to sub for like editors and book covers, you'd have to pay that money up front. But the
mhm,
idea is the Kickstarter would pay you back. Alternatively, you don't have to purchase the copies necessarily until the Kickstarter funds. So you're not
mhm,
sitting on hundreds of books, hopefully, or 20 years, whatever. You're not sitting on that. So you can order those after the Kickstarter funds because that
mhm,
gives you plenty of time to do that. But like I said, some of that stuff would have to be paid up front and free to incorporate that in your Kickstarter price because the whole purpose is to not start off in the red. You want to be
mhm,
in the green or in the breaking even when you do Kickstarter. This way, you don't have to worry about that upfront cost.
mhm. Like I being in the red thing, God. So my friend and I, when we started out, so my first novel I had co-written with my friend, like my best friend since college. So that was a lot of fun to actually write this. And then we decided, and this is a situation that I would say most people probably are not in, who are indie authors on TikTok and stuff who like are involved in the community that we're involved in.
Mhm.
Me and him decided that we were going to actually form our own LLC and put books out through that because our goal, we had very lofty goals at the time that we were going to be like, we're going to publish other people's stuff too. Like ours is going to do so well that everyone's going to be like flocking to us to be like, publish my book. You guys are amazing. So we really thought that that was, a possibility. So that was kind of what we were going for. Clearly didn't work out that way. But where was I going with this? I was trying to say, oh, in the red. So we have, since we founded and formed a business, we had to keep track of the finances like pretty strictly. So I was doing all of the accounting and stuff for it, which wasn't that complicated. But being able to see how much money when you're an indie author and seeing it laid out because we had to have it laid out, see how much money that you've invested and then how little you're getting back, at least at first. Like finally, we're not in that position anymore, but it took a really long time to actually get to the point where you were no longer putting more money in than you were getting from it. and it's difficult. So I had put out videos before about like setting a budget as a self-publishing author because I feel like that is like an actually really important thing because there are a lot of fees that add up that you don't really think about. So that depends on what service you're using to print on demand though. So I'll ask you, what do you use for self-publishing? Do you use KDP or do you use a different one like Ingram Spark?
I use both. At the moment, KDP is my main. I was trying to go wide using like Google and Apple, but I wasn't selling any books there. And
Hmm.
previously, I had had a lot of luck on Kindle Unlimited and stuff.
Yeah.
So I have focused solely on Kindle Unlimited, KDP. I am on Ingram. I haven't had any books sold through a bookstore yet. Here's
Hmm.
hoping.
Yeah.
But it's really like a living organism, like a plant or something. You have to constantly keep up on it, check, keep keep adjusting and tweaking as you need it. But
Hmm.
yeah, it's KDP and Ingram are the two that I use at the moment, and then for in person, like I said, I go to conventions.
Yeah. I had a similar experience with like Google Play and Apple Books and stuff like that. Like right now they're back up on there, but I go back and forth about if I want my books on there or not because I really Apple Books, I honestly I don't even think I've ever sold one on there. I've sold a good number on like with KDP and actually Google lately for some reason people were buying
Sweet.
that. I just got a payout of royalties the other day and I was like, wait, what? Like I don't even check that account because I didn't even think that anyone was using it, like anyone bought it through there. But so your books, you said that they were part of Kindle Unlimited. Are they? Do you still have them enrolled in that? And how did you see that? Like that program, did it like really help you a lot? Did you use the kind of features that it has, like the free promo and countdown deals and stuff like that?
Yeah, so I have campaigns always up. So they're always running advertisements for my books and everything.
Hmm.
I've sold a handful of copies through KDP when I do those countdown deals and stuff. Unfortunately, yet fortunately, a lot of times when you do a free promo, I sell a bunch of those books at that time. Of course, you get no payout for that.
Yeah.
But it's a good way to get my short stories. I have three of them, well,
Hmm.
three and a half out, and I kind of put those on free promos a lot. And then give people a taste of my writing. And if they like that, hopefully they'll go further and look at my other series and stuff. But the countdown deals I've seen some success with, tying it in with the advertising.
Hmm.
And then Kindle Unlimited, back when I first had it in there, I saw a lot of success with that, mainly because it's free. People kind of see the cover. They're like, why not? I'll give it a shot.
Hmm.
And in that case, it's free for them. They're already paying for the subscription. And if they don't like reading it, I still got some page rates. Uh, but I would like look at it religiously and be like, okay, that's 75 pages. My book is 475. Why did they stop there? Are they going to keep reading?
Hmm.
And you see
Yeah.
more pages the next day. But I like that aspect of it because I can keep on tabs with it, and on it's a maybe a small delay, like a day or two, but
Yeah.
fairly live updates to kind of keep an idea of what's going on with my stories.
Hmm. And then what you were saying that Ingram Spark isn't really like your focus for this. So I
Yeah.
think about this a lot because I have a KDP account set up for the ebooks that are going to be available on Kindle. But then I don't know why I decided to do it this way sometimes. But I have that, and then for Ingram Spark is what I use for the actual print one. So that is ends up being available on Amazon and everything. When I guess I could have like sort of bundled the ebook and everything just to have all in one place. But I ended up having like accounts all over the place. So like I'll have the KDP one for the Kindle version. I have the Google Play one for that. I have an iTunes one for Apple Books, and then you end up with a whole bunch of accounts, and it gets to be a little bit tough to keep up with all of them. It's especially annoying when you have to make some sort of edit to like I've learned to be better about this. I don't change my social media handles as much as I used to, but I used to like I would tweak it a little bit and the name would change or something like that. But then I'd have my social media like links to it at the back of the ebook, and then I would have to go and update
Oh,
that in every single place. And it was just such a pain. So now I'm like, I really need to consolidate this stuff. Like this is getting to be a little bit much. But it sounds like, for you it is a little bit easier. to manage when
Well,
it's Kindle, and they also give you pretty good data
yeah,
to keep up with. Like Ingram Sparks isn't it's not fantastic, I don't think. Like
it's not.
the analytics you
A
get.
little more delayed than KDP. I will say for like Kickstarter and stuff, because Amazon doesn't let you order copies until it's published.
Oh,
KDP
okay. Yeah.
allows you to, because you could order the author proofs, but those are not for resale. You can't order
Yeah.
author copies until it's published.
Mhm.
Ingram allows you to set it up so it's just for you. So you could have it published and order copies for yourself
Mhm.
without having to have it published to the world, which is nice.
Yeah. No, that is cool. Would you ever think about doing an audiobook of your
I
book?
am
Because
in
this
the
has been coming
process
up
of that.
lately.
I highly recommend it. I know it's difficult for indies, and I know there's some issues with ACX, Audible. They kind of aren't very friendly towards us.
Mhm.
But I'm looking into royalty share that locks you in with ACX for I think 6 months or 6 years, something like that. At
Okay.
this point, I kind of don't care. I just want an audiobook out there.
Mhm.
Maybe not the best mindset, but a lot of people, including myself, are moving towards audiobooks because life, if you don't, you should try at least. I do try at least an hour a
Yeah.
night. But still, audiobook is my main consumption of reading still. I'm trying to get an audiobook out there and
Mhm.
I'm attempting to work with a couple of different narrators and see what it looks like.
Yeah. I've thought about this a lot recently because a lot of authors have been telling me that they are pursuing an audiobook, which for me, I had never this is one of those times where I'm like, "Oh, it's just not for indie authors, right?" And then now I'm like, "Oh, I guess I was wrong. It really is." So I just always kind of dismissed it as an option because I could never really think about how could never figure out how I would have been able to even get someone to read this in the first place. Just thinking, if it's not like a huge book yet, it's not one that has like a gigantic following, then it might be tough to convince some random voice actor who is offering their services on ACX, or is that what it's called? I always forget.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, so one of them to be like, you know what? Yeah, I'm definitely going to invest my time in recording this. But the royalty sharing option seems like that's probably the way I would have to go. I feel like
yeah,
that's the most realistic for probably a lot of people. But that would be
yeah,
great if you were able to get an audiobook version of this because you're right. A lot of people just with the way that life works, audiobooks are just a lot more they're a lot more practical for a lot of people, especially someone like me with a ridiculous commute where I'm driving and it takes up a good amount of time. Like that's really the only way I'd be able to consume
yeah.
books at this point.
You'd blow through them. You'd be like, all right, that's great. One
Mhm.
book down, next one up.
Yep, I know. I think I'm like I really need to start doing that. I have I made an Audible account like a week ago, and I'm like I'm gonna start doing this. I'm gonna get a bunch of books, and I haven't picked which one I want to start with yet, but I am telling myself I'm going to do that. So let's we've been talking about your book, like the more practical things about publishing your book, but we haven't really talked about your books yet. So let's get to that, which is always the fun part. You either have the authors who you're like me where you're asked to talk about your book and suddenly you like can't speak anymore, or you could be the one who's like ready to sell it at any given time with their elevator pitch. So let's talk about yours though. So you've got two out right now. So it looks like you had split the story into two books to make it like a little bit more digestible, I think, to people, right?
Yes.
So the first one is the Water Crystal, Deal with the Devil, and then the second one is also the Water Crystal, but Rise of Azrasul Kaimana.
Yeah.
So they were released in 2023,
Mhm,
and it looks like it's like dark fantasy or like paranormal urban type
mhm,
of fantasy. So that is a genre that is sort of new to me. I've been
mhm.
meeting a lot of authors who dabble in that, and there's always something for me to learn. So I'm glad that you're gonna be telling me some more so I can learn something. So let's start with Deal with the Devil. Give me the background. Like, what's Deal with the Devil?
All right. So I call them supernatural fantasy instead of like urban fantasy, where a lot of people think werewolves, vampires, elves
Mhm.
in the modern era. I'm still in the modern era, but I deal with angels and demons and the sort like that. So deal with the devil. Main gist is Anthony Luther made a deal with the devil that brought the war between heaven and hell to earth. So now he's got to jump in and see what he can do to help. or remove humanity from the equation, let the supernatural beings fight. It's got action, adventure, magical items, a journey through hell, a little bit of romance, and I can sum it up into like a heroic story.
Mhm.
Somewhat coming of age, but more becoming the hero kind of
Okay.
tale.
Cool. So you have angels and demons kind of theme going
Mhm.
here. How much of it is, like those are sort of like Judeo-Christian elements there.
Mhm.
So, how much of it is like a really, I'm trying to think of how to word this. Like, did you play on kind of biblical themes a lot with this, where it would be sort of familiar to someone whose belief system that's a part of, like someone who is like, Christian or something.
Mhm.
They could read this and be like, okay, I see the sort of the strands of this story that are drawn from, like biblical stuff, or is it more like, you have these sort of supernatural creatures in it, but largely it is sort of like its own fantasy story that isn't necessarily following like the mythology of uh that religion and everything. Do you know what I mean? I'm trying to think of how to
Yes, yes.
how to word it.
Uh,
Okay.
So I'm thinking it's more the former.
Mhm.
It does rely heavily on Judeo-Christian beliefs, but where it bleeds into the latter is I've taken a lot of liberties, and I want a large audience, so I did not intend for it to be preachy or like a religious manifesto, but I also didn't want to go full bore in the other direction either. So if you are religious or you aren't, you can enjoy this book without feeling one way or the other.
Mhm.
My main focus is the characters, how they would deal with these kinds of situations. From the very religious being face to face with an angel, how would they actually react to that?
Mhm.
And then the agnostic or the atheist being face to face with this, how would they deal with that? And I try and give a fair shake to everybody. My main background is philosophy and religion, so
Oh,
I
cool.
try to
So this is
incorporate a
perfect
lot
then.
of those.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I don't give anybody a two-dimensional argument for one way or the other, and I don't focus on those arguments necessarily. I just want to tell a good story, and the background is angels and demons, Judeo-Christian religions, but the forefront is the characters and the obstacles they have to overcome.
Very cool. So you can be. I was saying this to another author who he wrote a book that had some sort of that had similar themes as that, like with like the devil and things like that. So we were saying, you went in the direction where you were being philosophical without being preachy.
Mhm.
So that sounds like that would appeal to a much wider audience than one that is just sort of like beating a certain point and that like that's really it. So that's cool. So what about, I was wondering this when I was sort of reading through the book blurb. So, what exactly is the water crystal? Because I know that there's sort of some like Faustian kind of deal with the devil stuff going on there. So that I see. And then even Azra Soul Kaimana sounds like a very. I'm assuming that that is it sounds like a bad guy to me, or like a like a dark lord or something. But what exactly is like the water crystal? Is that like a sort of like a magical element of this that is really prominent? Like, what is that?
So, a little bit of backstory. My favorite book series of all time is The Sword of Truth and the Sword of Truth series. So, the Sword of Truth in that series is the magical item that kind of the whole story focuses around to some extent. So, to pay homage to that series, I named mine the Water Crystal because the Water Crystal is the magical item that my series circles around and takes precedent in.
Okay.
As you read through the story, you learn what it is as the characters are learning what it is. Essentially, it's a extremely powerful magical artifact that both angels, demons, and humans alike aren't 100% sure about.
Mhm.
There are a handful of individuals who were there to know what it is, but getting to those people and beings and conversing with them isn't as easy as it may seem. So that's kind of what the story is about as well. Anthony trying to figure out what this artifact is because it comes into his possession, and no one is happy about this. The angels feel like an artifact that powerful shouldn't be in the hands of a mortal. The demons find that it could be extremely helpful in the war, so they want to grab it. Thing is, it chose Anthony, so they can't really do anything without him, which kind of makes him the crux of the whole war. And then Azrael Kaimana, that is a word I made up for a being in my story that, without giving too many spoilers away, you'd have to read to really uncover who it is. But it stands for English words that I throw in there and explain what that means. But I
Okay.
love the sound of it. Uh, so
Yeah, it's very
means
like kind of
something
like
in.
arcane being. Like I like it phonetically does fit what you were kind of going for. So
Thank you.
so you were saying that would you categorize this as like being more character driven? I mean, it sounds like there is kind of like a grand plot to it where
Yeah.
it's not like it's just all interpersonal things, but you focus a lot on the characters. And I've been asking everyone this. I feel like the people who watch these are going to be like, Jesus, like stop asking the same question, but I'm just going to ask it because it's on my mind. So some people like to have a very large cast of characters, especially in like fantasy or sci-fi or something like that. Other people really shun that idea and are like, we're going to limit it to a very, very small number because sometimes it just gets to be overwhelming if you have too many. So for you, which side do you fall on? Are you somewhere in the middle? I don't know, like kind of with the way that you write, I don't know if you like to have a lot of perspectives like that or if it's sort of limited to a smaller number to be a little bit easier for the reader. So which way do you go? Do you like a lot of characters or kind of a more reasonable number of them? I
So
like a lot of
I fall
characters
on.
personally. So
I think I fall on the more reasonable side.
mhm,
However, it depends on what the story calls for. So book one has 3 points of view, not including the epilogue. So 4 points of view total. But because I felt the story needed something, and one of those and my other characters that I had points of view for did not was not there, so I needed another point of view, and that kind of grew from there. And in book three, I have 5 points of view, including the prologue, and 6 points of view, including the epilogue. So the
mhm.
cast is growing. Uh, so it all depends on what the story needs. I don't mind
Yeah.
having a large cast. It gives me play if I want to X a character. I have that
Mhm.
leeway, which is beautiful when you have a large cast. I think the issue sometimes comes if you have a large cast and no one leaves. They're always there, and that's where it can get a little crazy. And I personally get overwhelmed with that uh,
Mhm.
because I'm more of the gardener or the pantser as opposed to the plotter. So I having those extra characters, or I can jump into that head, see how I feel about that scene. If I don't like it, get rid of it and move on.
Mhm.
But as the story develops and as the characters grow, I start seeing new avenues that they could take. And a side character may get their own point of view because I feel like their story would be more interesting than someone else at the moment. So that's kind of where I fall. I know it's kind of a vague answer, but it really depends on
No,
what the
you're good.
story calls for.
Mhm.
And then I'll just do what that is. Um,
Yeah. Well, with the way that you're doing it, where it starts out in the first book with a sort of a more limited number of people, and then by the third one, you have like 5 points of view, you're introducing characters sort of gradually to the reader. So I feel like it's not going to be overwhelming to have five by the third book, because by then these people should be pretty familiar with at least some of the characters that are already being shown. So adding in an extra one is not going to be like, oh my God, another name, to remember. I feel like it's going to be a lot more like it's going to be easier for the readers if they've spent 2 books seeing these other characters already depicted. So
that's my
um
hope, at least.
yeah, so cool. So I'm gonna put links to your books, of course, in the description, and I'm gonna direct everyone over there. Anyone who likes dark fantasy, paranormal type fantasy, this is gonna be right up your alley. And I do want to ask you a couple more things, and then we'll wrap it up, just because we're sort of getting to the time limit that trying to, out of fairness, trying to give to everyone. So. You are very active on TikTok and you have like a good social media presence, which I think for any indie author is something that is really important. I can speak for myself and say that I didn't really start actually interacting with people and being fairly productive in terms of that until maybe the last year or so. But I had been just like throwing blog posts into the ether for a couple of years before that, like hoping that someone saw it. So, since we were talking about, being an indie author and trying to compete and get people to actually pay attention to you, do you have any advice for like a new author who's starting out, maybe isn't really sure how to get their name out there? Like, you seem to leverage social media pretty well. So I don't know if you have any kind of advice for people, because I guess that's the goal here, is trying to give people some guidance who don't really have a lot of knowledge of this stuff. So how has like social
Yeah.
media helped with indie publishing for you?
So for me, it's networking more than anything. I don't know if I've seen any sales or anything like that through TikTok yet, or directing anybody to my Amazon. However, I've enjoyed all like people I've met, including yourself. The networking and the indie community is so amazing. Like I know there are some horror stories, but I feel like they're much more limited compared to other interactions in our outside of publishing
Mhm.
world. And I've had such great interactions with everybody I've met, and I've built a friend group that I consider friends, and the information that's flowed both ways is great. So don't be afraid to message indie authors or comment on their videos, and just you can talk with them or anything like that. Or if you follow them, they'll follow you back. Any advice, things like that. So don't be afraid
Mhm.
to reach out. Most of us are more than happy to help the little guy. And then for me, it's consistency. Trying to be consistent so that your videos pop up on someone else's feed. Try and get multiple videos out, but make them polished. Don't
Mhm.
just throw poorly crafted videos because unfortunately, just won't watch it.
Yeah.
Um, if I see something that I'm just not interested in, I'll scroll past. But if it's engaging and it looks clean, I'll watch for a little bit longer. And that's the part that I think I'm still working on, is to get those crisper videos. It took me a while, but there's two things that I really love doing: con talk and then editing time.
Mhm.
Con talk, I give advice on different cons, how to set up your table, how to deal with splitting tables, or how to approach somebody who comes up to your table. And then
Oh,
editing, I just do live
that's
edit.
a really cool thing to give advice on. I never thought about that.
Yeah,
Yeah. That's
it
cool.
it's
Uh-huh.
wild when you're there. It's like, oh wow, this is a lot to take in. I don't just show up and sell books. I have to again compete with other people as far as like, does my table look interesting? How do I set it up? What can draw
Mhm.
customers in? So that's fun for me to pass on information that way. And then editing, I just throw up. I'll take a video of my computer screen as I'm editing live, or somewhat live. I'll edit and then I'll go back, undo, and then record the steps and just kind of walk through what my process was. Like, this
Mhm.
sounded redundant, so we'll erase this line and put this line here. Or this didn't really add to the scene I was writing, so by fixing it and making it this, and then I'll let the people in the comments let me know if they like the first one better or the second one better.
That's a
Kind of give.
fun interactive idea
Mhm.
there. I never thought about
It
that
took me
either.
forever to come up with something like that, but it's from watching other authors and just the stuff they would bring up. Like, you can ask questions to people. Michael Mawassil, a mutual of mine, he's
Mhm.
really good at that, where he's got Ask Me Anything. And I tried that.
Yep.
Excuse me. Didn't really work for me. He's got it great. He just has a delivery, and then people will ask him questions, and then he answers them. And I think he has fun with like toying with them at times to
Mhm.
draw more viewers in. So don't be
Yeah.
afraid to be a little controversial, not rude, but
Mhm.
controversial, to draw more viewers.
Yep.
That's the best way to build a following, is to make yourself entertaining.
Mhm. I had Michael on here for an interview, and his co-author David. Michael's great. I love
Mhm.
him. So
Yeah.
yeah, he has a lot of video, like very kind of engaging and interactive
Mhm.
videos. And I entirely agree with you that the indie author community online is so much more supportive than I ever would have expected it to be. Like, I think of the internet as like this kind of like wild west of assholes who are just kind of going to be, like cutthroat or nasty or just like pointlessly rude just because they have like a degree of anonymity and they feel like they can just say whatever they want. So
Mhm.
when I went on, I was so reluctant to go on TikTok for a long time because I was like, oh my God, it's going to be like a bunch of crazy people. And then, no, it is one of the best things that I ever did, I think. And since I started this whole indie author journey, was to actually go on there and start meeting people, because it makes it so much more you just feel so encouraged to actually create things and to put yourself out there and to not worry that you're going to be laughed at or anything like this. Like it's just people who want to be creative together and actually support people doing that. And even though, I guess technically everyone is sort of competing for readers' attention, no one is like going into it looking at it that way. So it is really, it's cool, and I'm very grateful that I have been able to meet people like this. So yes, any new authors out there who are watching this, please go and just interact with your fellow authors on social media. It is one of the best things that you could do for yourself, especially if you don't really know where to start and you need some guidance. There's always going to be people who are willing to give you some more information and kind of point you in the right direction if you really don't know where to go. So yeah, and then you'll meet cool people like Alfred here, who I met through social media. So thank you so much, Alfred, for being here. I really, really appreciate it. I know we had been talking about doing this for a while, so we finally got to it. And
Yes.
yeah, so everyone, please go check out Alfred's books. You've got the Water Crystal series, first book, Deal with the Devil, and second book, Rise of Azrasul Kaimana. And then the third book will be out early next year, hopefully. So go check out those books. I will put the links in the description. There's also plenty of other things by Alfred that you can check out. He's got his War of Nerds podcast. So go look at that if you are a sci-fi or fantasy nerd. I feel like that may be something that will interest you. So go check that out. That is on YouTube. And then, of course, go follow him on social media. He's got a big TikTok account, and Facebook and Twitter and Instagram. Go check those out and subscribe. So thank you again, Alfred, for being here. I really, really appreciate it.
I love doing these. I love meeting other authors, and I'm glad we finally could. I had a blast. If you ever want to have me on again, I'd love to sit around and
Absolutely.
chat.
No, I would. Yeah, especially since you have when the next book comes out for sure. Like it would be
Oh
cool
yeah,
to
that'd be
talk
cool.
about that and see how the Kickstarter went for
Yes.
that. So everyone, I want to say stay tuned for next week's episode, but I honestly can give you no guarantee that it will be a week from now. So just stay tuned and make sure to subscribe so we can keep supporting more indie authors out there. So until next time, thanks so much for your support and God bless you all.